users group. They were very impressed with what they saw there. And the customers of XMPI were very impressed of what the university is doing and how they're going to be able to have a pool of employees or people, potential employees can bring in and help them and help their customers. So we all want to give a big thank you to Jacob, and then also for his time today. A little bit about his background. After completing his education and working with several successful technology firms, Jacob had a desire to strike out on his own. So in 2000, he leveraged his past education and technology experiences to launch XMPI. So Jacob is a global technologist. He's an inventor, an entrepreneur, and a C-level executive. And I think we'll just go in and ask Jacob now. Jacob, give us a little bit about your history and how you were able to combine going from your computer arts education into the world that we now know, which is transmedia, cross-media, omni-channel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me for this session. Thank you to the university, to Professor White. It's not my personal donation to the university. We decided after having quite a good dialogue that it will be beneficial both ways if we give the software to the university to be part of these transmedia initiatives, and we'll get educated people to the workforce, and they will be educated with what we felt is the best. So I think it's not a personal contribution, it's a company, it's XMPI and Xerox. About my background, I'll try to make it short. I graduated from the Technion in Israel in computer science degree, was lucky to work with one of the most innovative startups in Israel called Cytex, and with some people that were very, very influential in computer science. One of them is the late Professor Amir Pnueli, a Turing Award winner. And through that, I also knew very well the founder of Cytex, Efi Arazi, also the late Efi Arazi. At some point, I got a chance to be at the Silicon Valley, visiting Xerox PARC. I got completely mesmerized and influenced. I decided to break the work practice and just go to study for a graduate degree, and I was accepted to the Cornell University, got a PhD in computer science in distributed systems, and was ready to become a professor somewhere or a researcher somewhere. And then Efi Arazi, the legendary founder of Cytex, called me. He's founding EFI. I hope that most of the people here know about EFI, Electronics for Imaging. And I couldn't refuse and joined him in San Francisco in founding EFI. Through that, I became very familiar with the whole evolution of desktop publishing, the legendary people who actually created it, the founders of Adobe, Warnock and Geschke. We also worked with Steve Jobs. So I was very much influenced about what's going on there in the Silicon Valley, the whole emphasis of giving control to the originators, what people call democratizing, in that case, democratizing publishing. And eventually, going back to Israel, coming back to Cytex, after some time, I got to found the XMPI. I don't hear you. I don't hear you, Julie.
Okay, sorry. Jacob, let me interrupt you for a second. I'm getting a bunch of feedback, so it sounds like some people are not on mute. If everyone could please go on mute so that we don't.
Yo no quiero verme ahí. I don't want to see me there.
I don't hear you, Julie.
Lois, can you mute everybody except Jacob and myself?
I can mute all, and then let me see if I can unmute you. Okay. Okay, see if you can unmute yourself, Jacob. Okay.
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay, very good. Okay. Now, Jacob, you forgot to mention where you met your wife and how influential she was in this whole process.
Oy, 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 oy. You can't see my blushing now. I met my wife at the Technion. Well, love at first sight. It took some time. But she helped me a lot in getting, first of all, to work at Cytex, my first job, and later was a very good partner in making the decisions of, moving to the USA to study. It's quite a move. She was a professor at the Technion at the time, and through the years, I mean, naturally we had to consult together on a lot of critical decisions, including decisions in the evolution of XMPy, which is very demanding, very demanding task.
Mm-hmm. And really, your kind of career path, even from the very beginning, when you were still back in Israel, is different than a traditional one. How did your parents deal with you not wanting to go to, say, a big corporation and getting a solid job at a solid company and kind of branching out into a smaller, more startup type?
Well, my parents, my father wanted me to work at a big corporation in Israel, Israel size, not necessarily USA, but a big company. And I went to work with a startup. My mother wanted me more to be a surgeon or a doctor, medical doctor, or a lawyer. Very typical of Jewish mothers, even though she was very smart, and she couldn't believe what I'm doing with computers. But they liked eventually what I did, and I went on my own way. Okay, so
Okay.
I had the context, but I picked my own way.
Now, when we were kind of talking about this and how to kind of do the chat back and forth, we kind of thought it was best for you to be able to describe kind of the omni-channel, the transmedia, the one voice in a small presentation. So why don't we move to that presentation now?
Sure. Yes, okay. So thank you very much, and I'll do the process of sharing the presentation. I hope you'll see that. Let me know if you see the leading slide.
Yes, I do.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I hope everybody sees the leading slide. In preparing for this meeting, Professor White said that it will be interesting to understand something about my background, also to see if I have something to say about the future. And I felt that it would be a good idea to cover some of the key things about XMPy, but to come to that discussion from a point of view of things that are very relevant and current in the agenda of marketing operations, of people who are implementing campaign communication, be it in print or other media. So I said, let's talk about transmedia, omni-channel, and customer journeys are very hot items and very frequently used. But let's look and give it some inside view. And through that, I will be able to talk more specifically about certain things in XMPy, and I'll close it with giving you some thoughts about one direction that is pretty futuristic, and I hope that I'll leave you with some food for thought. So omnichannel is all about engaging your audience via transmedia communications, where all the touch points reflect one view of the customer. Very easy to state it, but we will zoom in now and look at few examples, and then we'll try to understand what are the challenges from this seemingly simple definition. So here's one example. This is actually a customer of XMPy, Orange Door Direct in Canada, which did a project for the Alberta Motor Association. And what the Motor Association wanted is to improve the understanding of benefits while reducing printing and mailing costs. And what Orange Door Direct provided them is an idea of engaging the new members with a simple, not expensive, welcome pack that will engage them in a digital dialogue, and the result of it will be a highly individualized PDF delivered digitally. And only those that are non-responders will get the full printed booklet. So it looks like that in terms of designing of the campaign, design of the workflow. And let me see if I can actually pick. Okay, so you can see that they start with this welcome pack, which leads to a landing site and interaction. But now I'll show you that, with the real content, which is, by the way, one of the capabilities in XMPie. So you see the landing site is personalized to the person, tries to engage them, move them to an interaction, and then based on the interaction, the end result is actually one PDF. This slide, in that sense, it's misleading. We wanted to show that we can generate many different versions of a file, but think of it as only one PDF coming to the person. And so the simple idea is very straightforward and also simple to present. But when you look at the overall flow of the campaign, you see it's much more complex. Where does the complexity come from? First of all, they wanted to make sure that if someone came to the landing site, if they didn't respond within 2 hours, they send them an email and say, wait a minute, do you need some help? And it actually created better results for them. The second thing is that if someone got the welcome pack and never got to their landing site, they send them a reminder email that leads to the landing site. That's after 17 days. And if they don't respond even to that, after 30 days, they send the full printed welcome pack. So you get a glimpse of the fact that you define such experiences through such a workflow automation, marketing workflow automation. This is done with XMPie Circle. And you see that actually the main purpose was very simple, but with all these exceptions and reminders, and then it becomes a bit more complex. Overall, they achieved a nice result. And so that's one example. Let me show you another example. Another example is fictitious. It was done by Xerox and XMPie. It's a customers of a catalog, fictitious brand called Northerland Catalog. And the catalog, if you can see here, the catalog would be personalized in its cover and maybe personalized in some internal content. And these things should lead a person to a landing site where they interact, and eventually they're going to get coupons to get something in discount. And as usual, a reminder in case they did not respond. So this is how it looks in practice. You see the catalog here, and pay attention here. By the way, do you see my laser pointer? Okay, good. So here you see that they are offered some discount of 20% if they actually go and interact on the website. And so in this case, it's Margaret. She goes to the website. She makes some selections that are offered to her. And when she hits that she's done, she's getting the coupons. And you see that the coupons have 20%. It's difficult to see, but the 20% appear also here on the landing site. And of course, it is in the print side. Just this thing that you have the same thing in all the different touch points should remind you this notion of one view of the customer. Like every other campaign, there must be a reminder. And so the reminder is here in case someone doesn't go to their website after a certain time, you get an email that reminds you. And the beauty of doing it all with system that knows how to make all the touch points relevant to the individual. So is here you see Margaret Hampton. When you make the next one, you can see how the whole thing will look to Sheila. And Sheila, actually, pay attention, Sheila gets 50%, and the 50 appears here. She gets a different choice of products, and the coupons reflect exactly their choice, and the 50% reminder similar. And the last one in the example is Abraham. So I just gave you, these are simple campaigns, but you can see how print and digital interact in a journey, and that all the touch points are consistent. They appear to the person as one conversation. Now, let's look at some key takeaways that we have here. It's very clear that every touch point of the individual's journey must be individually relevant. It has to be relevant to that person. Whatever choice they make in one touch point, they go to the next one. The next one should reflect what they have done, and of course, everything that is known about them, and whatever out of it the marketing person wants to express in the offer, in the suggestion, in the design, etc., etc. So it has to be individually relevant and current. The second thing, it has to be engaging. If it was just individually relevant and all the touch points would just present text offers, it would not be engaging in our age where everything is so nice and beautiful and all the media is full of color or digital or print, whatever. So individually relevant and engaging are the key things that has to be provided when you create such campaign. And that's the notion of one view, the individually relevant. And I would say again that it's simple to state, but exactly these things represent a significant challenge for the campaign creators. And an opportunity for someone who brings technology to enable easier, faster, more efficient campaign creation, which you understand I'll say something about XMPie. Before I move to XMPie, one more thing. What about print? You saw that print was included. And again, I'm emphasizing that when we talk about print here, when I say we, I mean also XMPie, but when I talk about print here, I also mean PDF, because the way you design for the PDF, you use the tools that are from the print side, like Adobe InDesign. The PDF itself can be generated digitally and consumed digitally. So there is a lot of evidence, I'm not bringing it here, that print as a touch point, direct mail, brochures, digitally delivered PDF and things like that are very powerful. They are improving significantly the effectiveness of the omni-channel, the multi-channel experience. There's a lot of evidence about that. However, we have to remember that print will not be used, or let's say, print will not be used if it's perceived to be archaic, requiring different processes, and overall, people say, no, it's very costly. I'm not talking about the cost of print, but the cost of the process. And in most cases, the people who are driving marketing today are very savvy on the digital side. They're not savvy at all on the print side. And so it's very easy for them to go into this notion that print is archaic. Even though we have the evidence that print will make a big impact, it may be dismissed because of this second bullet. So the only way that people will use print is if it can be used in the media mix as an equal citizen. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. So, individually relevant and engaged. These are the key requirements on all media.
And
when I go now and just make the connection to XMPie, I would say that overall, the XMPie software addresses this challenge because of several things. And this is really a short, high-level statement. One, the architecture has a personalization engine that encapsulates the rule, if you want the scripting, and the data, the databases, the database connection, and it's common to all media channels, whether it's print or digital. The print media is providing two things. First of all, is the integration with Adobe InDesign, and we provide the what you see is what you get. So the creatives are in control. And the second thing, the whole interaction with data is live and online. For those of you that are in digital media, to say that the website is live and online and interacts with the database is trivial. That's the norm. In print, it's not the norm. So that's one thing that XMPie introduced here. And the last bullet is about the fact that the digital media can be done with whatever tool you want, as long as you refer to the XMPie protocol stack. So it's very open in its approach. I can use these 3 points in order to make some reflection now, short one, on how things evolved. So when you look, these are the 3 points, and for each one I'll make a comment. The first one was about the fact that the common thing between all the different media is the personalization end. Originally, we were thinking to make the design media independent and then convert to the target media whenever we know what is a target media. So we thought that design will be common to all media. Luckily, a top designer that I knew very well and worked with me the early days told me, Jacob, forget about it. The design has to be media specific. The only thing that you can share is data and rules. And it was a change in our approach because of my discussion with that person. And thank God, I mean, this is like, we would have been killed had we tried to go with a common design serving all media. The second thing is about the print media. I have to say that this is a little bit coming from my background. We aim to achieving what you see is what you get for variable data and print. What you see is what you get. WYSIWYG is the mantra of desktop publishing. That's the code name for everything that made the revolution of desktop publishing. And we felt that doing that in print for variable data will make a huge difference. Hence, it's like this second bullet came from, to a degree, from our history, our work with Adobe, our understanding of all of this, let's call it industry of publishing and desktop publishing. And the last one is very interesting. Our original approach to the digital media was very similar, even though separate, you have the design tools for the digital and the design tools for print, but it was very, very similar to the way we treated print. To the degree that in one of my early presentations to Adobe, they told me, Jacob, it's very nice, but your digital looks like print. So it took us several iterations until we actually finalized and realized that the digital media is a very, very open environment. A lot of different tools, a lot of different people working there. They are experts. If you want to engage them, we cannot force them to use our tool. We have to give them to use whatever tool they want, but they will be okay with using our protocol stack. And that's exactly what we've done. So not everything was cooked gold from day one. Things evolved, some luck, some insights, some history, but that's the way it happened. Since I touched upon XMPie a little bit in a flavor of evolution, I just want to give you a glimpse. Before I go to some ideas about the future, I just want to give you a glimpse of how it really, really started. So early on, my co-founders and myself and other team members, we were very strong, very, let's say, professional in variable data in printing. We worked with Xerox, we developed controllers, we developed print specification languages. So we were very strong on that part. And when I got time to think about, my next thing and thinking about creating a company, I had time to finally look at the internet. It's weird, yes. In 1999, you finally look at the internet. And every discussion I had with people that were not on the print side, that were on that side, they talked about personalization. But for them, personalization was equated to internet. I said, wait a minute, it cannot be. We are in the world of print, digital printing, and we say personalization is the killer app in printing. And the guys that really use personalization, they only think of the internet. So we realized, that's the main point. We realized that for marketing, personalization should be a strategy, not a media discipline. But they don't know to ask for it. It's us that understand that maybe there is a way to provide a bridge. And that's what we went to do. We wanted to create a bridge between these two things. This is like really the early days of XMPie. And we say, look, they don't know to ask for it, but they really need it. And so we will do it for them. And when we will bring it, they say, wow, that's what we need. And I actually checked it with some agencies and people in marketing, and they told me, wow, that's really, really very, very important. And so it was all about tools that will enable individualized mass communications across multiple media channels. This is the way we talked about it early on. Of course, through the years, it became omni-channel, transmedia, multi-channel, all of these words. But we thought about these concepts early on, and I was influenced by some conference from IBM about e-business, so we called it cross-media personalization in e-business, hence XMPy. So you have the explanation of why XMPy, and that puts a pause here. And what I want to do now is move back from this nostalgic comfort zone and look a little bit at the future, again, talking about journeys. Some like switching page, moving to a different context. So journeys, everybody's talking about customer experiences, journeys, etc., etc., etc. I want to look at this and with the notion of going to the future, I want to look at it a bit differently. This is what I want to suggest here. So many times you have a picture like that. This is the blueprint of one campaign. This is those of you that are familiar with XMPy, PressoCap is our own invention and different campaigns around it. The first thing is to make sure that people understand this is not the journey. This is the blueprint of all possible journeys that blueprint represents. In other words, if you have 3 different customers, each one will go along this blueprint, but based on their choices, based on their profile, they will move in different touch points. It's not, so the previous thing is not the journey. This is the journey. And now the realization that in fact, maybe it's trivial for some of you, but the realization that the journey itself is a linear thing. You move from one point to another, to another, to another, based on your choices. When you as an individual go through these things, you don't know that there is all of this if then else conditions, etc., etc. When you get this view, which again is not necessarily so deep, but sometimes simple things are being like ignored or you don't pay attention. When you get this view,
Oh, Jacob, we're not hearing you now. You're on mute.
you muted me.
Okay. There
I'm
you
okay
go.
now?
There you go. Yeah.
So when you look at this picture, now you start to see that the blueprint on the left side, the thing that you do in Circle or in any marketing automation solution, in fact, is something that defines a lot of journeys. If you remember the example that I started with Alberta Motor Association, and if you remember in that example, they handled people who are not responders. So people who didn't respond after 17 days got a reminder email, and those that did not respond after 30 days got the full booklet. Now, who knows? Maybe they should have waited 45 days. Maybe the reminder email should have been done after 10 days. So it means that whoever made this blueprint made these choices. So the journey of do something after 45 days or the journey do something after 15 days is not there. So this kind of thinking about the fact that the blueprint represents journeys brings you to the question of, why is it not moving? Oh my God, just a minute.
And while Jacob,
Bring you to the question of,
okay,
how do we know that you've done all the good journeys? And the insight that I want to share with you is that it's not easy to create the blueprint for such campaigns, regardless of whether it's XMPy or Marketo or anything like that. And so the way to look at it is to say, is there another way? Is there another way of enabling all of these good journeys without pre-programming all of them? And those of you that look at what's going on in the world understand that one of the magic of machine learning and artificial intelligence is that they can give you solutions without programming the details. You just learn a lot of stuff. So the insight that I believe is going to happen as we go forward is that machine learning and artificial intelligence will play a very significant role, either as aiding or helping humans to define this, or simply controlling these things. I mean, learning about the experiences. So a machine learning kind of thing could say, well, you shouldn't wait 30 days. 28 days is better because they looked at a lot of cases. And so my thinking is that as we go to the future, the human preparation of campaign automation, of marketing automation, of this engagement workflows, of all the possible journeys, human preparation of that will become something that is assisted by artificial intelligence or completely replaced by artificial intelligence. And that's really what I wanted to share with you. There is some stuff that we can address based on question. I want to leave you with this reference of white papers that you can find them in the XMPy site. That the QR codes actually will lead you to these white papers. Depending on your level of interest, I think these are interesting. Indeed, some of them were written in 2007 or 2009. And so some of them do not reflect exactly the state of things as it is in 2020, but I checked them and I think that overall, if you're interested in the fundamentals, in analyzing certain phenomena in the industry or in technology and how they interact and relate to each other, I think the 3 white papers here will do a good job for you. I will say here that the middle one, the cross-media white paper, is something that I wrote together with Carrie Sherborne, pretty well-known analyst and writer in the industry. And so I think that's really the presentation. I mean, if you have any questions or things, here is my email. And of course, sorry, there are questions that we'll address here, but still I'm providing you with the email. And maybe I'll just add this, I'll just, on my own initiative, I want to just make the point in this particular slide. There was a question of how can students, scholars that come out of the digital media initiative of U of H, how can they make a difference? And of course, I don't have all the answers, and I actually also do not understand the whole industry, and you can understand that my view is somewhat biased, but I will tell you at least 3 things that I feel can be very much influenced by people that understand all the different aspects in transmedia, digital and print, and how they work together in the style that we just discussed. The first thing is that when you look at the big players of CRM and marketing automation or customer experience, just 3 names out of this big is Adobe, Salesforce, and Oracle. But you can also look at IBM. I'm sure that you can look at Microsoft, and there are some smaller players. But you look at the big players, look at what is their expertise, and it's everything about data, about rules, about analytics, and about the automation workflow. Much less on the presentation of content, even if it's digital, okay, website or email, and significantly less, probably nothing, on print as an equal citizen in the media mix. And because of that, people that use these systems always look at print as a side effect. And secondly, they do not believe that they could actually do things where individual content can be there on demand, relevant, without them preparing everything in advance. So people who study all of this and understand all the different sides, the digital and the print, can come and make a big difference if you influence either the customers of these big players or the big players themselves. I believe there is a huge opportunity because there is a void. People understand very well about the data and rules and the automation. And then the rest is like automatic. But no, the rest is not automatic. How do you present nicely in an engaged way the content that you want is a challenge by itself. So that's bullet number 1. The second thing is an observation that I'm starting to see is that, like, while everybody is talking about transmedia, everybody is talking about customer experiences, everybody is talking about omnichannel, the reality is that the small and medium businesses, they don't know how to do it. When they get to the point that they have to engage it, don't do in print, they will blast an email. Or they will do even something great, they will put something in social media. But there is no connection, there's no individualization, there's no journey in a real sense, and it's not so difficult to do it, but they don't know about it. And you, people who study this, understand all the aspects, you can actually make a huge difference for such businesses, or create a business yourself, but you can make huge difference for such businesses by really being there and being able to, allowing them to practice their digital transformation, let's say, in a much more effective way. At the end of the day, people will continue doing everything in digital. Print will be part of the game, but everything digital. But they need to know how to do it. Without that, their life in business will be difficult. And the last is maybe more obvious, that all the service businesses, whether it's the agencies, design agencies, or the print businesses like commercial printers, quick printers, things like that, they need to transform. They cannot stay in the old ages. They have to become players, both in transmedia and in omnichannel customer experiences. So they need workforce that understand it. And again, it's when I say workforce that understand it, everybody today will say, oh, yeah, sure, I know how to do web. Oh, I know how to do email. I have done that. But very few people really had the time to study and pay attention to how you put all of it together into a holistic journey and experiences, with or without print. And so I believe that you can make a big difference here. I think at this point I will stop, and we'll see if there are questions or other discussions, or if you want some clarifications, maybe I have some slides on that.
And Jacob, can I get, I'm static here. Are you off? No. Okay, I'll try again. So Jacob, I like this slide because it really talks to the digital media students that yes, print is part of the mix. That's all you know. It's not going to get you where you want to go. Yes, digital, whether it's photography, video, email, social media, if you cannot make them all work together, then you just cannot achieve your main goal of being out there and being important. And I think that that's what Jerry's telling his students all the time. It's, you know, the right message to the right person at the right time on the right media. And even in the future going forward, it's going to be more important than it is now that people can understand them all. And you did make a comment that you need to have state-of-the-art technology for each of the channels, so that if you do a great job in the digital part, but then your print piece shows up the old way, you know, without the personalization or the latest info about that person, then you've just lost it. Do you want to just cover that one more time?
Yes, and I want to relate to what you just said at the beginning, at the end, sorry, when you said about the state of the art, and you refer to an example where the print piece doesn't look state of the art. But I think that we have to be aware of the fact that nobody will sacrifice their digital efforts in order to be consistent with print. So if we bring print to the game and say, well, but for that, you need to do your digital in a specific way and or a specific tool, or something that's easy, whatever, you lost the game. Because digital is very powerful, it's very important. Digital, in fact,
well, I'm moving while you're talking.
Okay. So digital is very, very important. And so one of the observations that I made, even during the days at XMPI, is that you cannot bring people to use print if, for doing that, they have to do less state of the art, I mean, less engaging, less powerful on the digital side. So both of them has to be state of the art. If you engage someone and there is a website, the website should be as powerful as can be by any other tool, okay? And similarly, of course, the print. But you made the point about the fact that the print should be state of the art, and it's a valid point. And I want to add that nobody will sacrifice their digital experiences just in order to have print in the story in a consistent way. And it relates to the fact that for print to play, it has to play according to the digital rule. This is why I said about the online connection to data and all of that stuff. But everybody needs to remember that it's not about saying print is powerful, use print, but make your digital a little bit less so you can use them together. It will never happen.
Okay, I
There's
pulled.
a question that's come up a couple of times, Julian. Let me add it if you don't mind. And that is the question of to Jacob about the importance of the database that you use to create all this or to get the right message to the right person, the whole data mining process. So if you could elaborate on that a bit, please.
The availability of data, so you can do actually something with it, is a very critical element in being able to create engaging experiences. And I think it's, let's say it's obvious, but I also would say that I never studied that part very deeply. So what we experienced early on in the life of XMPie, and I believe maybe some of it is still true, is that companies may have CRM systems, but it's not always easy to extract the data out of it. So the notion of having the right data to start with something is always a challenge. So being able to collect data, to manage it in a database, to do all of this are very, very important characteristics that are in the context of being able to eventually do a customer experience or a multi-channel with omni-channel experience. I would say that what we have learned and we see is that through the interaction, and there is already a journey and there is interaction, an important side effect, sometimes the real purpose, but an important side effect of interaction is gaining more data, gaining more knowledge. And on one hand, you add it to your data. The other hand is that you use it while you go through the journey. So having the right data, having data overall is a challenge by itself. Some companies are handling this, this is their main focus. But I would say that it's important to remember that gaining data, gaining knowledge through journeys is also very, very important. I'm not sure that answers completely the question, but that's really what I have to say here.
And Jerry, let me just show a couple of pictures and have Jacob talk to them before we go into the rest of the questions. And Jacob, do you want to share what this picture is? Who would this young man be?
Well, everybody understands that's well, I don't know. You want to get a little bit of my background, and that's myself after finishing the Technion, working at Cytex, software and hardware integrated. But this was, you see that I had the mustache even then, these were much earlier days, and then jumping from being at Cytex to a meeting with a small team in Israel. You see, this is XMPie in 2004, just the beginning. Talking to the team about what happened, what we are going to do. It's not the whole team; it's just a subset of the Israeli group. And really, the journey, I talked about it a little bit, but the journey from being early on at Cytex and being able, through these connections and through the years, to land at EFI and get the influence and the meeting with different key people in the Silicon Valley and people that were very much influencing the way we work. And I'm talking about the desktop publishing, about Apple and all of that stuff. It left a big impact, I think, that was in my background. And eventually, when I came to Cytex back after many years, from Cytex, I created XMPie with this kind of belief that you have to be, open to everybody, that the creatives are important. You can't leave the tasks to the experts that are close to the machines. That's exactly the same arguments that were made in the desktop publishing, and the same thing we've done with XMPie. And I think the story is still going on, but we said, look, let's give the power to the creative, and everything else the software should do and the hardware will continue to improve year after year, so performance will be there. And it was a big challenge, and still it is, but I think it's the right direction. Pictures here that you see. Of course, I like to have customers. Getting customers after you start a company is a very, very important moment in the evolution of the company. And here is Jeroen, the guy with the pink shirt. He's from Amsterdam. Excellent customer, very innovative. I think he will say that without XMPie, he wouldn't be in business today. He's the president of the XMPie Users Group. And I'm with a different picture here with Andreas Weber and Jeroen. Andreas is a very famous analyst in Germany. And
Jacob, you make a very good point. Your software can be excellent, but if you don't take care of your customers, doesn't matter.
Sure. Okay, so I'm always happy here with my team. And actually, you look at the picture for me, it's on the left. For you, I think it's on the right. I don't know. The left side of the screen with the few people behind with me. The guy to the right, the tallest guy is Aaron Baron, and Aaron Baron took the leadership of XMPie after I retired, so he's now leading XMPie. Then you have Dan Doron and Yaron Mohaban. Dan Doron was part of the founding team, and Yaron joined later. Yaron, I met him very, very intensively while I was at Cytek second time, developing the Creo controller, a variety of things. So I like to be with a team, and I was very pleased here. It was part of a users group meeting. The more inspiring maybe picture here in New York is the black thing coming out of outer space almost, is the building where we had our offices. It was courtesy of our VCs, the venture capitalists. They wanted to have a building, their offices there, and they said, you come with us, we'll give you we'll rent you some office space. You have to pay for what you get. A very famous part of New York City. I think it's New York, I don't remember, but very inspiring part, and a lot of time was spent there. I like to talk to customers, and this is like, I think in the first users group meeting when I said, okay, now we were acquired by Xerox and we're going to do, I thought, XMPie 2.0. There are certain aspirations, things happen one way or another, but I like to speak to the customers and hear from them, but also tell them what we are going. And well, Julie's bringing me all the pictures here. Not everything and every place and every stop or every touch point was actually smooth sailing. Sometimes there are very, very difficult times. You have to think about how you put all of it together, individuals, people, money, strategy, and sometimes there are very, very challenging times. This is in a hotel near the office in New York, where we took some off-site personal meeting to discuss some very tough issues at that time. Yes, it's not always a bed of roses, that's correct. No, not at all. This is a very important picture, actually. Anne Mulcahy, the lady in the picture, she is the legendary CEO of Xerox. She took Xerox from almost bankruptcy, I think in the year 2000 or something like that. And between her leadership and the team that was around her, she made a huge difference and saved Xerox, actually. And she's considered a legend, really. And I was lucky to meet her in a conference in New York. This is before they acquired XMPie. And it was, of course, very exciting to be near Anne Mulcahy. And I had to, I don't know her, so I had to get some guts and talk to her. And it's not in this picture, but in this event, I actually went to talk to her and I said, look, you saved XMPie. So she was shocked. I mean, what do you mean? Said, my investors did not believe in Xerox. They said, what are you doing with Xerox? I mean, why are you telling us that your software will work with Xerox machine and also with others? Who is Xerox? They're dying. And by the fact that she saved Xerox, and I continued not gambling, but I said, look, the iGen, etc. Anyhow, I told her the story. She was very pleased. That's not the reason they acquired XMPie, but eventually they acquired XMPie, and I think it was a very good move for XMPie and also for Xerox. I guess this is probably your last one because it's the end of the journey with XMPie and Xerox, where actually in a Premier Partners event that Xerox had in Portugal, in a very nice place. They arranged a session with me, farewell session. The leader of the session was Elaine Banchette. She's talking with me. And the picture on the left is with Aaron Baron, who actually took the leadership, and he's now following me. He was the person who ran finance. He was the CFO of XMPI, and then later responsible also for business operations. So that's the transition of moving the baton to Aaron Baron, and now they're doing on their own. Of course, I continue dialogues with them, but that's my farewell party, part of the farewell party.
Well, thank you very much, Jacob. And so, Jerry, I'll now hand it over to you for the questions, and I'll go ahead and put up the slide with the 3 white papers and the QR codes for a few minutes so that anyone that missed that would be able to capture those.
I think that there was a tremendous amount of chat relating to the to how good of an overview this was of how Circle works. And the picture, the flow chart that helps people understand what the entire process is all about. So I think most of the statements are about those issues. And so I thank you for that, Jacob. So the real takeaway that I think that you want to have all of these students to have is the engagement, and not just sending somebody a link to a website or expecting someone to show up and buy your product by search engine optimization, finding a site that way, but rather engaging them. So do you have any other additional insight about the words that are used in the engagement part and the pictures and the videos and that sort of thing? I bring it up because I was listening to my some of my senior thesis presentations this morning, and that was a really big deal about what images do people engage with? What words do they engage with? So can you give us some suggestion from the design side, from the strategy side, about how to increase that engagement?
Well, Professor White, I mean, this is for me beyond my expertise. In other words, this thing about what word to use, how to suggest things, and these are for me, it's the magic of communication and marketing. What I became an expert in, you don't say on yourself, but let's say what I became very familiar with and driving is how to provide the tools that you can actually easily do whatever you want to do, so you can present it. That you're not limited to, let's say, just text or something like that. Still, I would say that people are, I don't have any specific answer. I think that people are doing A/B tests to see what works better. I know that XMPI started doing something that supports it. I think that if you're overly personal, people are saying, wait a minute, you're too close to me. If you are completely ignorant, in other words, I told you that I like something, and the next thing you actually tell me something else, it's a disaster. But how to word, an approach, I don't know. I mean, it's human communication. It's what we are trying to do with all of these things is to imitate a dialogue. We're trying to imitate a dialogue. You cannot be there talking to the person, and actually you want to talk with 100,000 people or maybe much more automatically. So as a person, you cannot do that. But when you think about what to do, you have to think in terms of having a dialogue. And I think this is an area of, I would just summarize it on my side as a magic. I don't have any specific knowledge on that.
Okay, would there be any others? Yeah, would there be any other students or participants who would like to be able to ask a question that could not do so through the chat? If so, just unmute yourself and ask. Come on, Callis, I know you have a question. It's quiet
Hi,
out.
may I ask? Oh, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
What is your personal preference on what you prefer in that sense? Like, which is your personal preference on take?
Personal preference on what?
So whenever you have the different forms, like strategies or approaches you take, what do you personally prefer in that sense? I don't think I'm wording it correctly, but out of all the different things you spoke about, what is your personal favorite approach?
First of all, I'll tell you what I think in response to your question. I mean, first of all, in my, I would say it's in my blood. I'm coming from a technology background. I very strongly believe that, especially in high tech, you have to know how to blend the ability to use technology and invent technology with the understanding of the market and the customers. It's not exactly answer to your question, but I would say
no, it definitely does make sense. I mean,
no,
I think
wait. So let me just few more things on that.
okay.
I've been in many situations where people trivialize it. In other words, they say, we listen to our customers, expecting that the customer will tell you exactly what product to do. And in high tech, that's not the case. I'm absolutely sure about it. In high tech, you have to listen to the customers, but you cannot expect that the customer will tell you exactly what product to do. You have to be able to bring your technology innovation and say, wait a minute, they don't even know that this is possible. Now,
Yeah.
maybe, and that's the risk, sometimes you come as a technologist, you say, well, I can do ABC, and nobody needs ABC. So that's the risk of being too technical. What I've learned through my experience is that, and especially because of my experience with XMPie, is that I have to blend the notion of innovation, of leveraging technology and deep technology. I cannot brag about XMPie, big technology, but I can say that I believe it is, but all of my experiences are with deep technology. It's not something trivial. I'm not saying that there is no opportunity in trivial stuff, but then you have to know how to marry it with the customers. You have to know how to present it to customers and to listen to them to see what are they telling you that you can improve. It's almost like throwing the first stone into a pond.
Yeah.
And being very careful to listen to the waves. Okay. So I guess that's, so I'm coming from a technology thinking, but my startup experience gave me a lot of not confidence, but experience and understanding that you bring in the innovation and the doing of new things with the money and all of the stuff. It's somehow stabilize. It gives you some feedbacks that otherwise you're going with no direction. So yeah. I don't know if I completely answered you.
Oh, but no, definitely. I really liked your approach on saying that, sometimes consumers don't actually know what they want until something's been created and they're like, oh, well, this is something we'd like to add on to that, or this is, what the, public thinks they want. But in reality, that's just, the base of it. That's not even all of it. So thank you very much. No, you definitely did.
Thank you.
One of the things that all of you technology people, whether you're in digital media or information systems or whatever, are going to have to remain for the rest of your life is teachers, because you're going to have to teach people that this thing can be done. A lot of people don't know what we can do with personalization at this point. A lot of marketing folks have never heard of it. And that's why you have to be constantly teaching your clients what you can do. Anything else, Julie?
Well, Jacob, you have 100+ people listening to you today. If they were all your children and they were going into this omni-channel transmedia industry, what's one or two important things that you would tell them to make sure they focus on at this time?
Well, that's a tough question. I think that people that are studying, I think that make sure that you have full breadth of things. Don't home on one particular thing too early. I'll say obvious things. I'll say obvious things here. I think that it's what we understand. If it's just about this kind of area that we are talking about, omni-channel and transmitter, the essence of what's going on in these disciplines is that they are disciplines that integrate other disciplines, as opposed to, I'll take you an example. You can very easily take someone technical and explain to them databases, just databases. They understand it very quickly. Combining database with taking the data through scripting, creating a presentation in different media, getting input back, feeding it, it's already integration of quite a few disciplines. Some of them are not technical. Some of them are creative. Some of them are, the marketing. So people in this discipline of education, they have to realize that it's really, really multidisciplinary. And in that, I think that's, which means you should understand a lot of different disciplines. You should be aware of these disciplines. Maybe you will focus on some of them. You will never learn all of them, but you have to be aware of the fact that it's all about integration of different disciplines. This particular area is that. There are many other things like that, but I just think that this is the case.
And I would just like to say to the students listening to Jacob today, you can tell that he has a wealth of experience from starting a company to selling a company, good days at the company, struggles at the company. He's met different people that have guided him different ways. So if there's anything that you would like Jacob to come back with and share, please let Professor Waite know, and we'll see if we can't twist his arm a little and bring him back and speak with him again.
I'm stuck in California now.
Yeah, we're all in our own little spots right now, so it works great that we can meet this way. Thanks so much. Okay, Jerry, that's it for us. Do you have any final words?
Just thank you, Jacob, for everything that you have done for us. Little by little, and it's pretty obvious from the chat, the students are getting to have a much bigger idea of everything that they can do now, based upon your generosity with them. It takes a little while to get the content of what XMPie is through classes so that it becomes integrated with their way of thinking. But I think that one of the most important things you said was that this personalization is strategy, and it goes across media, as media agnostic. You have to have the strategy to personalize, to talk with people, and that's what we really appreciate, and that's what digital media is trying to do from the very, very beginning.
Okay, it's very encouraging. And also, thank you for inviting me. I enjoy this thing, and I hope people enjoy the presentation.
We have time for one more question.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Wayne Swamber. I'm in Professor Ferriante's technical communications class. I just had a quick question, Dr. Aizikowitz. What advice would you have for a young college student who's just getting or trying to obtain a foundation in computer programming, whether it's like via C++ or Python? I'm not sure if you ever, I'm pretty sure you've come across one or two of those in your lengthy career, but just what advice do you have for a young student trying to, get a solid foundation there? Because that's where it starts, I believe, for computer programmers, like that foundation class, that basic course, and then going off to the more complex programming languages.
Okay, that's a question we can talk about it a lot. I'm coming from the discipline or the background that believes that if you go into computer science, and let's assume for a minute that programming is part of it. If you go there, it's very important to understand the fundamentals, to understand algorithms, to understand data structures, to understand all of these things that are, let's say, on the science side of computer science. In terms of the particular programming language, I know it's very relevant in terms of when you go out to the market. And I believe you can actually, once you understand all of these fundamentals, you can grab a language one after another. I have to a little bit qualify my answer because I'm familiar with all of these languages, so I'm not like completely from the
Yes, sir.
Middle Ages, if you may think
Yes,
that.
sir.
But there are many things that evolved in the programming discipline. A lot of things that today, sometimes to develop things in software, you take predefined components and put them together. I saw it with various teams. So that might be something important to understand. But I would still say that the most embarrassing thing is to see someone is using whatever language they know and creating something that, by definition, if you just look at it algorithmically, they're making big mistakes. Like it will run forever. It will not be optimized. It will not. So I'm like giving you an answer on another thing. I'm saying people who come into the computer programming, engineering, and science discipline, they should spend time to make sure that they understand the fundamentals. The languages, I think it's less critical, but choose the most modern language that you have today, and that's it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jacob. We appreciate it. And thanks for everyone listening in today. It's been great to have everyone here. Bye-bye.
It's been almost 200 people at times. So thank you very much, Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Andy, Julie.